Jacob's Quest, and this is my late review of The Monkey. I actually saw this several days ago. I'm just getting around to doing the review. I don't know, my bad. Life happens, right? Anyways, The Monkey, the latest Stephen King movie to come out. And, I'll do my non-spoiler little review first. Let me just say that if you ever needed to show somebody like what a dark comedy or a horror comedy is, like what that really should mean, I think this is the movie for you. There's been a lot of great examples in the past, Evil Dead 2 and all that stuff, but I feel like if you need like a modern example, like what is a horror comedy, it's this. Because the thing about that specific blend of genre is that there's a lot of different projects that have made attempts at making those, and I feel like more often than not they end up making just straight up comedies that are like kind of satirical about horror. I would almost put Cabin in the Woods more of a comedy than a horror. It's more of a satire kind of thing, whereas this one, it's more horror than comedy. And I know maybe I'm just playing the semantics game here, where it's like, okay, how much does this really matter? It's just like this little point on a bar moving between left and right of horror and comedy, and it's like, I think this one is perfectly centered. Like it is a goofy concept, and in its own universe they kind of take it seriously, but the characters, they're strange, quirky characters, and their reactions to things is where the comedy comes from. So it's and I don't really know how else to explain it better than that. And maybe you'll disagree with me. Maybe you'll watch this and say, oh no, this is definitely more of a comedy than a horror, but I feel like this is a great blending of the two. In any case, The Monkey, so not directed by Stephen King, based on a short story by Stephen King, directed by Osgood Perkins, who also made Longlegs, which was, that one was a strange movie, definitely just a straight up horror, sort of Silence of the Lambs kind of with a twist, whereas this one, man, I don't know, at times it does feel like an SNL skit, other times it feels like the new Pennywise It movies. It is definitely, it's got your blood, it's got your gore, it does not hold back at all in those regards, but it's almost got so much so that it starts to become hilarious, because it's so excessive, it's so over the top. The kills that you get in this movie, they're creative, and they're sort of a spin on the Final Destination series. That's definitely what it would remind you of. But just the reactions that people get out of it, you're like, okay, somehow they turned this horrifying thing that just happened kind of hilarious. It's just full of weird, quirky characters. I guess that might be kind of standard for a Stephen King movie, but it's just a fascinating movie. I walked out of it going like, I know I enjoyed myself, but I can't tell what level of reality we're playing at here. Like these people, at a certain point, death becomes so common that these people are not reacting to people dying or horrible stuff happening around them in the same way anymore. At a certain point, they're kind of just like, okay, that's the thing that's happening. And it's like just gruesome, horrible stuff, but they just have to, like, okay, yeah, I've seen a lot at this point. And I think the best thesis for what this movie is really trying to do, if there's a message at all, it happens really early on when, and again, no spoilers, but a mother is trying to tell her sons, like, about life and death, and they're at a funeral, and you think that, like, oh, she's gonna give them this, like, heartwarming thing about, like, death is just another part of the journey, and like try to comfort her sons about, like, the horrible thing that just happened, but instead she kind of gives them this, like, this ultra cynical, like, kind of view of death, where it's just like, yeah, death, it's I might die, and you might die, and you might die, you know, and then some of us are gonna die horrible deaths where we're choking and we're screaming, but other people are gonna die more peaceful. But yep, that's life. You know, like it's said in just such a nonchalant kind of way, and that pretty much sums up like the attitude that goes throughout this entire movie, where it's like, hey, this horrible thing's gonna happen, but what are you gonna do about it? You know. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into a little bit of spoilers, and yeah, let's just jump into it. Okay, spoiler alert. So the monkey, the toy monkey, right? All right, basically this is the sort of like, you know, supernatural kind of imagery that, you know, this device that kills people. We've seen a lot of similar things like this in many different horror movies, and as much as they kind of explain the rules a little bit, you always walk away with a little bit of questions. Basically what we learn is that it's this small toy monkey, and you have to turn the key on its back, and when you do that, one of its arms will raise as if it's about to hit the drum that will ultimately kill someone. But the monkey decides who is gonna die, how they're gonna die, all that stuff. It is not up to the person who turned the key at all. Basically all we really learn is that it seems like the person who turned the key does not die. So as long as you are still that person, then you'll be fine. However, other times the monkey seems to very much have a will of its own. Like it'll start just teleporting places. It'll just be wherever, you know, and it can keep its arm raised seemingly for like days and days, like just waiting to be in a position where someone could die. And again, there's not always like a reason why it chooses who it chooses. Like it kind of just seems to be random, to be honest. Like very early on, it kills a babysitter seemingly for no reason. Like there doesn't like no one who turned the key wanted that to happen. Like nobody like, oh, I hate that babysitter, you know, like, and then something bad happens. Like no, it's just, I don't know. It just seems to be a thing that the monkey decided. So the plot here, the actual like what the hell is the movie about though, basically these twin brothers had this toy monkey when they were a kid, and they found out what it does and what it is. They even kind of messed up, tested it in a way. They're like, well, let's just see what happens if we turn it, just to make sure it actually works this way. Which I will say, this is like the first part where I'm like, oh, these kids are not like good kids, because like if you know what it does at this point, you wouldn't just still try to test it out, right? Because you know someone's gonna die, and of course someone does. But they do decide to throw it down a well and try to get rid of it. That way no one can ever misuse it, right? Like no horrible people can use it for evil. That's what they say. And then cut to 20 years later, they're all adults, and now you have our main kid that we're following, this guy who is trying to reconnect with his son, who in a weird way, he's like disconnected himself from his own son, and he's ruined his own marriage out of some sort of attempt to like not let the monkey be passed on to his family. This is the part where I'm kind of confused, because he has not seen this monkey in 20 years, but he's so concerned about the monkey coming back that he's like, oh, I'm going to stay away from my family. I'm not going to have any kind of relationship with them at all. And so he's just like this weird loner guy who's worried about this monkey who he hasn't seen in forever, but okay. Meanwhile, his twin brother, it turns out, has actually been seeing this monkey everywhere in his dreams, and the monkey just appears to him randomly. Like whenever he's watching someone like their head will become the monkey head, and he's just like seeing stuff. And so he starts become obsessed with the monkey, trying to track it down and find it, and eventually they do find it. Now, when he does end up finding it, his plan, and this is where like I guess you could say maybe he's just crazy, and that's why this doesn't really make any sense, but basically he blames his brother for the death of their mom, because his brother had turned the key hoping that it would kill his other brother, but it ended up killing the mom, because again the monkey decides what happens, right? So he tracks down the monkey, and his plan is to keep turning the key on the monkey until eventually his brother dies. And he's just been doing that supposedly for weeks, and that's why people have started dying around the other brother like for the whole movie. And so even at the end, he's like trying to force the monkey. He's like, no, 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 turn the key, kill him, and he tries to get the son, the other brother's son, to like turn the key. He's like, maybe it'll work then. And basically the monkey, because of course it just does not do what you want it to do, it ends up like killing the whole town. Like it just keeps beating the drum like over and over again, like 1,000 times, and you just hear like planes crashing and things catching on fires and stuff exploding all over town. And eventually, of course, the brother who's been trying to use the monkey for evil purposes, he ends up getting killed himself, and and it's a bunch of crazy, gruesome deaths. But at a certain point, you're like, well, why don't you just kill your own brother? Why you spent decades hunting down this monkey, and then how long trying to get the monkey to kill your brother just by turning this key over and over again? I don't know. If you're that crazy at that point, you would just go kill your brother yourself, right? Like, why? Clearly the monkey is not doing what you want it to do, so why do all this? But I guess it's just for the plot, right? Like he's that crazy that he's like, no, it's got to be the monkey who does it, I guess. So that's just what he wants to happen. So anyways, but yeah, it basically ends in this situation where the brother that we've been following and his son kind of just take the monkey, and they accept that they can't run away from it. It's their responsibility. They just have to keep an eye on it, and it's some sort of metaphor for life and death. And I'm not really sure like what the full metaphor is supposed to be here. Why you gotta you gotta just watch your monkey, I guess. I don't know. Anyways, so they're going through town, they're leaving, and they're like, hey, let's go dancing, let's go do something. It basically, they're kind of leaving it in this place where like, hey, all this horrible stuff's happening around us, and we just have to accept that this is part of life, so we might as well dance. And so there is strangely an optimistic kind of ending there, even though as they're driving through town, you see like crazy stuff happening. Like this businessman is impaled by a surfboard against a tree somehow. This other lady is running with a baby carriage that's caught on fire, and it's just horrible things are going on. But they're just kind of talking casually about everything that's going on, and it's pretty crazy. They do end up seeing, and this is like the very end of the movie, they end up stopping at a red light, and on a pale horse, this like ghostly figure walks by, and so you're like, okay, this is the Horsemen of Death, I guess, because they had kind of brought up the four horsemen at some point in the movie. And so the Horseman of Death just kind of looks at them, and they just kind of wave back, and that's it. That's where the movie ends. So not sure what that's supposed to signify. Like, does that mean they're in the apocalypse now? I'm not really sure. It's just kind of one of those strange Stephen King endings where like, that was supposed to mean something, I guess. But in any case, I really enjoyed this movie. It is definitely a strange one. Like, not everyone's gonna kind of get what they're doing here, as far as like because this is not like your standard horror movie where people are freaking out and screaming all the time and everyone's like, oh my god. Because again, at a certain point, the characters we're following, they kind of just go with it. They're kind of like, dang, it happened again, someone got horribly murdered, oh well. And like, it's just like, okay, I guess like that's and like that's where the comedy comes from. But I feel like some audience members are going to be like, why are these people so weird? Why are they being so casual about this? So I don't know. I think that's really where it's going to depend on if you get the horror comedy thing that they're doing here. In any case, I enjoyed this movie. It's definitely unique. I think it's worth a second watch, especially when you know for sure, like, okay, well, when did the other brother get the monkey? When did he start turning the key and a bunch of people started dying? Yeah, maybe I'll pick up some stuff about the horseman at the end and maybe what that was supposed to really mean there. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. It's definitely it's different. It's definitely unique. I think it's a good example of what horror comedy is and should be, because it's just got like that weird middle ground tone there of like, this is definitely a horror movie, but the characters are what makes it funny, not the rest of the environment. Anyways, let me know what you guys think about the monkey, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.